This week on Unapologetic Uplift.
It's another thing to fail publicly. You have to be willing to suck. Just show up as my bold self. Can you let that be enough for today? I told everyone I need to take a mental health break.
It's all AI now.
I'm leading by the actions I take in my own life. I won't apologize for being a multidimensional woman.
Amazing women. We met on social media.
There's nothing more powerful than a woman who owns her worth.
Get ready to rise above the noise and unlock your true potential. Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift, the podcast that's all about keeping it real and helping you live your best life. Buckle up. Get ready to learn, grow, and evolve with us on Unapologetic Uplift. New episodes released weekly.
Welcome to Unapologetic Uplift. I am your host, Kim Staples, joined by my co-host, Ianthe Mauro, and our beautiful guest, Elizabeth Marberry. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited and honored to be with you both.
The pleasure is ours.
Yeah, and we start every episode where we set an intention on a candle. So I let it come, whatever comes. So I'm going to set this intention. I haven't pre-planned what I'm going to say, but the intention that I'm setting on this candle is that everyone right now that's hearing this feels surrounded in light and love and protection.
And so it is.
I love that.
Thank you. So there are always two questions that we ask our guests on our podcast, and I'm going to let Kim start because I love when Kim does this. I like hearing you ask, Kim.
Okay.
Take it away.
Will do. Elizabeth, we like to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself and share what you believe the world needs to know about Elizabeth.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, okay. I am Elizabeth Marberry. I am a former professional dancer turned multi-six-figure entrepreneur. I started my dance studio business almost 15 years ago, and it now is a business that really works on its own. I only work in the business about 5 to 10 hours a week, and I have a whole team of people, incredible instructors that actually do all the delivery of the lessons and everything like that. And after we completely blew up on Instagram and TikTok with that business, I fell in love with social media marketing and the power of it and the power of how social media really connects us to our people. And of course, I'm talking in this context around business, but it's so much bigger than that, as this conversation with Ianthe, like we've met through social media platforms. And so just finding your people, like the people who you want to intentionally surround yourself with energetically, people who are playing at a similar vibe and level as you, so you can kind of rise up together. So I'm obsessed with that. So now that is really my focus, is on coaching and mentoring my creative entrepreneur and small business owner clients to leverage Instagram and their organic marketing strategy. And it's been a really fun pivot. I also am a mother of two young kiddos. I have a third grader and a sixth grader, which is crazy to say. I have a middle schooler. I feel like I'm at like a whole nother level with having a middle schooler now. I've been married for almost 15 years. And I am just really passionate in all the different avenues of my business and my podcast. And just, I've had many businesses, and all of them have a common thread, which is essentially helping people to show up as their most confident selves. Whether that is showing up on the dance floor in your most confident self, or it's showing up on an Instagram reel and like really embodying your most authentic self. I just love my goal is to always just show up as my bold self, not editing myself, because I think a lot of women edit themselves. And in doing so, my goal is to inspire other people to take up the most space in their own lives and to dream really big, to not dim down our dreams, to actually claim them and say what we want. And then I am a guide in helping you to really manifest the business and life that you want.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's so fun. And I get to watch. It's true. We met on social media. And how cool is that? I actually met Kim on social media as well. So I'm a big fan. And what's interesting is I think that we're all busting this conventional wisdom, and it's not, the word wisdom isn't right. These conventional ideas that social media is a place that is shallow. It's a place that it's all for show. It's a place where you're not authentic and you can't be. It's all AI now. What we're busting by showing up in this exact way is that, guess what, everyone? These amazing women, we met on social media. We can absolutely show up authentically on social media. And I had a question when you were talking about everyone, especially women, we self-edit. It's so interesting. There are never any coincidences. There are always miracles. So this morning I read, there's this woman I love named Africa Brooke, and she talks about self-editing, and she talks about how that becomes toxic in your body. And I was literally reading that moments before we started this podcast interview. So I have to shine a light on that part and ask you, when was a time, did you have a time when you were self-editing and you weren't able to show up authentically on social media yourself, or in life yourself, or in your business yourself?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I think I don't know if it felt like I wasn't showing up authentically, but it felt awkward. Like it felt so awkward. It felt a little bit forced. So I guess in that way it wasn't authentic, but I also feel like when you're beginning to show up, so let's talk about Instagram. Like I remember when I first, this was a different coaching business. So this was like 5 years ago, different niche and everything, but it was my first coaching business that I had created. And at that time, I was in this really high end mastermind and I was learning all about how to create webinars and do these lives and these trainings. And at that time, I still wasn't a very confident speaker. I knew that I wanted to speak. I had a desire to speak. I knew I was called to speak and serve in that way. And I would have visions of myself having a podcast and being on stages and speaking in front of big groups of people. But I didn't really have the skills yet. I hadn't practiced enough. And so when I first started showing up in my Instagram stories and trying to speak to the camera, I do remember just feeling so awkward. I don't know what I'm saying. And in a way, it felt more performative and less because I feel like that's kind of where you have to start sometimes, is like that whole fake it till you make it. And I think there is a lot of fear. It's one thing for us to fail privately, it's another thing to fail publicly. And so when you're building a brand, a public brand online, you have to be willing to suck publicly. You have to be willing to create content every day. This is what I always tell my people is it doesn't matter how big you grow. I create content every day and lots of it flops. But I don't care. It does not stop me from creating. But I wasn't always in that mindset. I was definitely more precious about everything I was doing and more self-conscious. And I think definitely just showing up on stories. I think I also, one of the things that I still struggle with is I am a very bubbly person. I have really high energy and I have a very high vibe, very positive energy. Everyone's always like, I love your positive energy. And I've walked through some really hard things in my life. And so I'm always trying to be mindful of I don't want to be another person who is painting this picture of the highlight reel of life. I want to be honest about some of the hardships I've moved through because I want people to know they're not alone in their struggle and that I've struggled too. And so I think in terms of showing up authentically for myself, I've had to be really brave at times and be really intentional as to what stories I'm going to share, like the loss of my father and having postpartum depression and having a child that learns differently and things like that, where I've been able to talk a little bit about some personal stuff, that always feels very authentic and raw and like full circle. And I'm also very choosy about what I share because I don't believe that if you're showing up publicly, you have to share everything. I'm very protective of what I share. So I think that's been part of my journey is how do I show up authentically? How am I real? How am I sharing the shadow and the light? But within what's appropriate and safe in my body. So I think that's a really important thing. And that's where it's like start small, like with me speaking in my story about I just went to this yoga class or having no idea what I'm doing. That's not that vulnerable, right? But it did feel that vulnerable to me at that time because I just wasn't confident speaking on camera. So I think it's baby steps into that vulnerability and that authenticity in terms of how you're showing up.
Yeah. You mentioned something at the beginning about how you felt very performative and you didn't want to show up, or a lot of us don't want to show up and have the content flop. We only want to post the things that we believe are going to go viral and we're going to get the response that we want, which is, oh, this is amazing. So that's something that I too have struggled with on social media. It's like, oh, this isn't good enough, or just getting in our own way in that sense. Is there a tip that you could share with listeners in terms of being able to show up authentically and being okay with it flopping?
Yeah, I think a couple things that come up. One is I always start with mindset, and the mindset of showing up is always, to me, the thing that helps me to continue to show up is thinking of the one person that I could help or inspire. So I actually don't need to go viral today. I don't need hundreds of thousands of views. It's actually completely unnecessary. If I get one new podcast listener or one new person in my field, that is worth it. That is absolutely worth it. So I've kind of let go. And that when you have that mindset of goodness, and it's almost like a trusting and a belief that the right person that's going to be served by this piece of content. And if I show up and create content from a place of service, it's worth it. And I'm not going to dim my light or be obsessed with the vanity metrics or what people are going to think. Most people are not even thinking about me. They're thinking about themselves. No one is even noticing. Okay. This is the other piece of it that I tell my clients is you have to have this mindset of like, you're running a marathon. You are going to be creating content every day. So please stop being so precious with every piece of content. It's not that big of a deal. We kind of put too much pressure on ourselves. And your content on Instagram typically has a pretty short shelf life anyways. Yes, a piece of content can blow up weeks later, and that's definitely happened to me before. But generally speaking, you post something and it gets seen within the first 48 hours, maybe 3 days, but then it's gone. And people are consuming so much content. Believe me, no one cares about it as much as you do. And no one remembers like what you did. One of my clients is like, is it too soon for me to repost this? And I'm like, do it. Most people never saw it the first time around. Or if they saw it, they legit won't remember. I don't even remember what I wore yesterday. No one's going to remember, right? So I feel like in terms of if you're struggling to show up, it's probably because you're putting too much pressure on yourself. So I like to kind of like the mindset of service, and it's not how can we release that pressure that will help people to just show up in the way that they can. And then the advanced step is how can you allow that to be enough, right? Like how you're showing up. Can you let that be enough for today? Because I know I'm a super high achiever. Sometimes I hold myself to this super high standard and I get to the end of the day and I've noticed that about myself where I'll have that feeling of I'm never done. And I've been thinking about that recently where I feel into what would it feel like to be complete in my day or to feel like what I did was enough for my business. I don't know about you, but it's like when you're an entrepreneur or you're a creator, there's always more. And we're such creative people. We love creating. So it's almost like it's nonstop. But for me, sometimes that can get really unhealthy where I'm obsessing over my business or I'm obsessing over the next thing because I love it so much. But I've been playing with that energy of what is enough for you, Elizabeth? Like, how can you find contentment? How can you be done with your workday and be truly present with your kids and your family and allow your brain to turn off? That's something that I struggle with and I'm continually working on.
That's so good. And I wrote a bunch of stuff while you were talking. One thing that came up is really quick. Can you define the term vanity metrics? Because there are some people listening who may not have heard that term.
Yeah. So vanity metrics is essentially like going after creating content just for the likes, the number of likes or any KPIs, key performance indicators that you can actually measure on your dashboard of followers and likes. And vanity metrics is sort of like I'm posting this just so I get a lot of likes or just so I get a lot of followers so it looks like I'm amazing.
Right. Which
So
you can imagine everyone listening, that is at the end of the day, maybe it gives you a little bit of an adrenaline rush when you do get a lot of those likes and follows, but what is it doing for you and where is it aligned with your core values and how is that actually helping you? It's just a little bit of a vanity dump. So I also wanted to bring up something and let everyone know this. I remember you taking a massive break from social media. And to me, I was witnessing this going, wow, she is brave. Like you talked about being brave, but I want to tell you, when you stepped away from social media, Elizabeth, it was for quite a while. And I don't remember, was it 30 full days or was it more?
I don't think it was a full 30 days. It was definitely at least 14 days though. And I
I
did like
missed you and it
every
felt like a
day.
long time. Yeah. So catch us up on what you did, why you did that, because from my perspective, I'm going to tell you, it looked scary to me, like she's really stepping away. She's really not going to post. And she has been consistently posting every day. And this woman has been showing up like I do. And now she's going to walk away from it all. And what was so wild is watching you come back better than ever. It's what I believe it's what started your business in coaching Instagram. So please share if I'm wrong about that or if I'm right about that, because I witnessed it. It
It's
was cool to
so
watch.
fun to hear your reflection of what you saw or what you experienced or what you thought. Because isn't it fun? Because so many times we're just doing stuff and we're like, I don't know how this is, how my people are interpreting this. So I appreciate you sharing. Okay, let me go back to that because I'm like, what did I do? So, leading up to that point, I had posted a reel every single day, probably for over a year. I was very consistent and I was showing up on both accounts. I have two accounts. I have my dance studio account, which is Wedding Dance Coach. And then I have my personal brand account, which is Elizabeth Marberry. And so every single day, I was just relentlessly showing up. And it paid off for me. That's when I started to grow and build my audience and I became a better content creator and all of that. And then I want to say it was around this time of year where I started to feel very burned out and just sort of uninspired. And I also think at that time, the content that I was creating wasn't performing as well anymore. And I'm a human. It's hard to keep doing something if it's not working. I want to say, oh, I don't care. I don't care. But I cared. I was just like, oh, this is draining my soul battery. And so I told everyone, I'm like, I need to take a mental health break from social media. And so I'm not going to be hanging out on here. And I didn't post for a couple weeks. And I was terrified. The other thing that was going on during this time is I was taking my family to the mountains for 4 or 5 days. And we were going through a lot within our family at that time with our kids and lots of different struggles. And I was so burned out from that side of it too, of just like being a mom and just the intensity of running businesses and mothering really high needs kids and things like that. And I was just like, I need to have a chunk of time where I'm not in creation. I'm not having to be on. I really need to give myself the space to unplug. And so I knew I had to announce it publicly. Otherwise, I would probably be tempted to just post things. But I was terrified when I did that because, of course, there's a fear of what if everybody leaves? What if people are like, what if everyone abandons me? Abandonment is definitely a pretty deep wound in my life. And that's something that I'm always aware of. But I definitely had that feeling of, okay, well, we'll see. My true fans will still be there. And I came back and no one died, you guys. Like, no one died. Everything was fine. My people were still there. Instagram was still there. And then I had this renewed sense of energy and creativity. And I felt more clarity around my next steps and what I wanted to create. Because it doesn't feel good when you're just like creating just to create, but you don't actually have a deeper goal in mind. At least for me, I was like, this is consuming so much of my life force. I need to be strategic about how I'm using this tool. And so I think that was also part of why I stepped away, is so I could just really take some space to think about where I wanted to go with my account. And it's funny, Ianthe, I don't remember the timing of it in terms of, is that when I started pivoting into talking more about Instagram marketing versus the dancing piece? I don't know. I don't even remember. Maybe you remember.
I just remember seeing your account grow so dramatically and you having fun again
Mm,
and I love that you mentioned using it as accountability rather than what I see a lot out there, and you probably see this too, is that people will use something like they're getting close to burnout or they're in burnout and they use it as a way to get more likes and more follows because
mm,
people do kind of run to misery. Misery loves company.
yeah.
And I see that a lot. You didn't do that. What you did, and I watched you do it in real time, but I heard you explain it this way. You posted it on social media because I think sometimes I might think to myself, and maybe someone listening would think, I want to take that break. I want to have that sacred pause and get myself back and not go into burnout. Do I post it? Because if I post it, is that somehow performative? Is that misery loves company and inviting that because I want people, or is it, which I think could probably be unhealthy reason, but a healthy reason, which is what you did. And a great example is I want the accountability because I don't trust myself. I have been having this habit for so long and I am so frickin' responsible and I love you guys so much. And I know I need this break, but if I don't tell you publicly and you're holding me accountable energetically, I may frickin' show up anyway.
Yeah, and I think at that time I felt like there was people at that time who would message me and be like, "Your videos get me through my day. They're so positive. I look forward to them." And so I think I also felt like I didn't want those people to worry about me because I had been so consistent. Because I did have people reaching out to me and they're like, "Are you okay?" But I think I felt almost like it was honoring my community to just acknowledge what's going on. And I think it's important to, if you're a leader of anything, it's good to lead by example. So I'm not just telling you to take breaks. I'm leading by the actions I take in my own life.
Yeah. And I always find if I feel stuck, like I'm in a creative block, it is time to slow down. It's slow down to propel forward.
Yes, yes. And it can be so hard to slow down. I mean, I don't know about for you. I would love to actually hear what you both do as a practice to slow down. I'll share that the one thing I do every single day, and it's definitely become a ritual and a practice, is I go for a walk outside for at least 30 minutes. And I live right next to this beautiful open space, and I'll go. And it feels most restorative when I can leave my phone and headphones at home. I don't always do that by any means. Sometimes I'll call a girlfriend or I'll listen to a podcast. But either way, just getting out in nature really helps me. And that's like my sacred pause in each day. But I would love to hear from you guys. What do you both do? Because I know that you both have beautiful practices. And I personally am like, how else do you slow down? Because I'm working on trying to slow down more as well.
Yeah, it's been a struggle for me. I'm good with it now, but I was in a corporate career before and worked 14-hour days, and I was in a leadership role, so I was on even when I was off, had to be available for my team and stuff like that. But these days I do daily meditation at least once a day. I have a morning routine where I get up, I do breath work, meditate, and tap. And I try to do it at night too, but it doesn't always happen. I'm not perfect with the nighttime routine because kids, sometimes they don't go down as easily and I might lay down with them and fall asleep or life just happens. I also do exercise a lot. I try to get to the gym 5 times a week, but sometimes it's only 3 times a week. But at least 3 times a week in the middle of my day, going to the gym to work out for an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Cool.
And I walk, I do what you do, Elizabeth, but I have a little ritual of surrounding myself in light. It's just a quick visualization. So if I feel like I'm spinning, I've got too much stimulus or something is really disturbing me, I do a quick reset, and it's just like resetting a computer. And it's become so easy for me. It's like breathing, but it's just a quick visualization that I'm literally surrounded in this beautiful light of protection, like I did when I set the candle intention for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it just takes a second, and no one has to know you're doing it. And you can do it anywhere. You can be driving and surround yourself in light. You can surround others in light too, and they don't have to know it. So that's one of my other things. The other one is really making sure that I'm hydrated. I notice that a lot of the times when I'm frustrated or I start to get I don't really have a grumpy, I have to be honest, I'm not grumpy. I'm almost never grumpy. I just don't, it doesn't happen to me, but it might be because I do these things. And I will say it's also just how I was born. I know that. But I noticed that even me, when I start to get what I would consider grumpy, which on the outside may not look grumpy to anybody else, I know I need to go outside, look at a tree. I need to drink more water, or I need to connect with someone who reminds me who I am. Because sometimes I have this thing where I'm very connected to my close friends and my mom, actually, and my children. And so connections to friends and relationships for me is another form of sacred pause and self-care and reminding myself to come back into my body.
Yes. I resonate with that so much. I call her my business bestie, and she lives in Milwaukee and I'm in Denver, but we talk almost every day, and it's like the best relationship because we can talk. She's an entrepreneur too, so we can talk about business stuff. Sometimes you can feel really isolated as an entrepreneur, but also we get like down and dirty with our lives and what we're moving through with partners or kids or whatever, and just really raw emotional connection. And I'm totally with you. She helps me to just to feel okay in my body and in my brain.
Yeah, I think we all need that. Somebody that we can be real with and share the things that we might not share with everybody, right?
Yeah. And hopefully that's part of what this podcast is showing too, is in modeling. Here we are, two women that usually Kim and I, and now you, right? 3 of us today that met on social media that also have things in common and that can lean on each other and be real with each other, and sometimes messy and get it wrong, and be able to forgive and be able to give. And we're just showing that. We're sharing that in real time. And then we're inviting other people like you on to also show what that's like and to show how valuable friendship is. And I found out from a friend of mine, another friend of mine, she does feng shui and energy healing, energy work. And she was saying that we're going into, depending on when you're listening to this podcast, by the way, we've already made some references to time here. I understand that this could be listened to 10 years in the future. So please forgive us. It's in the winter time. We are in 2024 in the wintertime, just to give you context for the future listeners. She said, we're going into Year of the Snake. And she said, one of the most important things about Year of the Snake, and by the way, her name is Melissa Yamaguchi. I know that you have both been around her before, so you've heard her voice. And I encourage anyone to DM me if you want info on how to hear her speak and get in touch with her. So she talked about Year of the Snake being a year where it's time where we're going to really crave connection, and that snakes shed their skin. So it's an opportunity to shed things that don't serve us and to create deeper connections. And then she mentioned something that, because I want to know what you think about this, Elizabeth, about AI, because AI has now made it. I'm sorry, AI is here to stay. That's what we keep hearing. I know it is. Okay. You can tell by the way I'm saying this, what I think about AI, and I'm not going to get into it. I'm so Gen X about it. But you're in the world of Instagram, and AI is freaking everywhere. It's all AI is this, and I found out. Oh, but let me get back to why the connection to Melissa Yamaguchi and AI. She said people are going to need human touch more than ever. As AI continues, which it will continue to grow, we're going to still crave those connections. Things like a simple lighting a candle, things like surrounding yourself in light and visualization. These are things that AI will never be able to do. AI cannot replicate the human touch, the soul, and that connection. So what is happening with AI in the Instagram world? Do you want to give us a little, like, how are you responding to it? What are you seeing happening? And what do we need to know about it?
Oh my God. Okay. Well, I love AI. Like, I have no fear around AI. We need to talk about this. So, just a quick little side note. The other day, I do have ChatGPT 4.0, which, by the way, if you want to use AI and you want to learn how to, let's just say ChatGPT, because AI, that can mean so many different things. But when I'm talking about it and my experience with it is really using ChatGPT, it's just another tool. That's simply what it is. And I do believe that it's kind of like any other technological advancement of like I have zero fears of being replaced by AI, there but the people who understand how to leverage the tool, they may do better in the future than people who don't. That's my
Yeah.
opinion. So to me, it's absolutely worth investing in learning how to use the tool. That's really how I look at it. But I just have to tell you the story. It's separate from Instagram because I've been playing with it and it was not a smooth transition into it. Ianthe, I will tell you. It wasn't like all of a sudden I was like, I love it and I know exactly how to use it. It was like learning a whole nother skill of like, how does this thing work? And I don't understand how this saves me time or so I actually hired an AI coach to help me because I was like, I need to learn how to use this. I made a decision I wanted to learn how to use it. But the other day, I had this really intense dream, and so ChatGPT now has a feature where you can speak into it, so you don't have to type. And I love that because I don't know about you guys, but I love sending voice notes. And if I can just speak it, it's just faster for me. I don't want to have to type it. I just want to speak it. So I spoke into ChatGPT and I was like, you know how dreams are. You have to say them right when you wake up or they go away. And so I grabbed my phone, which I know don't judge me. You're not supposed to grab your phone first thing in the morning, but I did. I grabbed my phone. I opened up ChatGPT. I don't know how I even thought of this. And I spoke into it and I said, please analyze my dream. And then I went into the most immaculate detail of my dream. And what it came back to me with was so insanely spot on of what I was struggling with in that day, in that moment. And it was very specific and it was so powerful. And I freaking loved it. I love this tool. It's so great. And I was like, I can't believe this robot just analyzed my dream. But essentially, it's just the same thing as if you dreamed about a unicorn and then you go on Google and you're like, what does a unicorn mean in my dream? It's basically just taking all of that information that's all over the internet and it's all in one place. And yes, you absolutely have to check for accuracy. It's not a plug and play system. You have to look at it with human eyes and your human brain. And I think of ChatGPT as like a first draft of anything. But I'm undiagnosed ADHD. Both my kids have it, so I think I have that. But sometimes I feel very scattered when, let's say, I want to create an Instagram reel where I'm speaking directly to the camera. And I know I want to teach on a certain concept, but I don't do as well with structure. Okay, how do I teach this concept? What would be a helpful structure? So sometimes I'll use ChatGPT where I will speak into it and say, and by this point, I've already trained ChatGPT on my brand. So it knows if you're going to use this tool, it's called seeding it. So you need to essentially teach it just like you would a virtual assistant. You need to teach it, this is my company. This is who I serve. These are our brand values. This is how I speak. These are the words that I use. I don't use these words. And honestly, it's a conversation back and forth. So I've already done all that, but I'll speak into it and say, I have this idea for this Instagram reel. I want to talk about this. I want to make sure I say these bullet points and I want it to be 30 seconds. Can you write me a reel script? And then it does, and it's not even like I read the whole reel script, but it gives me a really nice framework to go off of. So I use it for that. I use it for my podcast. So as you both know, podcast is a ton of work. After you have a podcast, you have a full transcription of your podcast. I take my transcriptions because I do a lot of solo episodes. Every Monday, I drop really tangible strategic advice as to how to use Instagram to grow your business. And it's a lot of work. I mean, I spend a lot of time prepping for these episodes. So I take that transcript and I put it in ChatGPT and say, okay, I want to announce to my email list about this new episode. Write an email in my brand voice. And then it gives me a framework and then I edit it. Or I want to take this episode and I want to make 10 different Instagram reels with this content. And I like to use it for repurposing content that you've already written or you've already spoken. And those are just some of the ways in which I'm using it. But I'm now in a point where I use it almost every single day with what I'm doing. And I kind of feel like it's my own personal assistant. I could write a whole email and just say, can you edit this for me? I absolutely love it. But that's how I'm using it on Instagram and in my business right now.
I love that. And I'll just say I use it for similar reasons. My aversion to it has more to do with the playing with altering what we look like, what we sound like, and then creating actual AI people who are going to speak because I just love the human connection. So that's the part where I get like, but saving time. I love the tips that you gave, and I can see that helping so much, especially I can relate to you as a highly creative person that what I really hate is a spreadsheet. What I really hate is something that's all that looks so organized and has bullet points. But in other words, however, I know that that's good for other people if I'm trying to translate an idea. So let AI do that for me. Let Chat GPT put it into the format, even though it comes from my heart and soul. So I love that reminder of how to use it, not let it use you.
Yeah.
It's smart. So it's like you have a whole team.
Elizabeth, we ask everybody that comes on the podcast, what is one thing that you will never apologize for, seeing as this is Unapologetic Uplift?
Oh my gosh. Oh, one thing I'll never apologize for. I will never apologize for the okay, I need a second to think about this.
Yeah, no worries. Take your time.
I will never apologize for my worth and my value in how I show up. I will never apologize for the space that I take up on camera or in my own life. I will never apologize for my quirkiness. Like, I love to be really silly, where you're like, Elizabeth, you're acting like an 11-year-old right now. I love to be silly. I love to be goofy. I love to be professional. I love to be buttoned up. I won't apologize for being a multidimensional woman with power. This has actually happened to me quite a few times in my career, and I'm trying to still understand like how to teach about this. But I can tell you both that there's been multiple times where I'm charging for what I do, and I have people tell me, "Oh, that's like people who do what you do don't charge that much." Or I'll actually tell a story. This is dance related, but doing line dance events for like corporate events. I don't do a lot of teaching anymore, but I do line dance gigs on the side just because it's the most fun for me. Okay. I love dancing. I love line dancing. I'm a Colorado girl. I love being on stage. I love having a microphone. I love getting the party started. I've been doing this, that kind of thing since I was in my early 20s. And those are the gigs that I'll take because I'm like, this is so fun. But I really, really value my expertise in the industry as a dancer, as an instructor, and as an MC. I'm not just a teacher getting up there saying, okay, here we go, right? There's a lot to it. And I remember I quoted, I want to say this was a couple years ago, that I quoted this agency that wanted me to work this event. And they're like, it'll be 2 20-minute sets. What would it be? And I was like, $1,200. And they were offended. Like, this guy was offended. He was just like, oh, people don't charge that. I've been in the entertainment industry in Denver for 20 years. People don't do that. And I basically just gave him a paragraph of like, this is why I'm at this level of value. And if you want my time, this is what it costs. And he's like, you're never going to get that. 2 years later, this year, I've already booked, I was going to say either 3 or 4. I'm blanking on 3. It's either 3 or 4 gigs, $1,500 for doing 2 25-minute sets of line dancing. And I'm like, so you tell me it's not possible and I'll go show you it's possible. Because there's nothing more powerful than a woman who owns her worth and knows her value and knows what she brings to what she's doing. And so that's happened to me with dancing. That's happened to me with coaching, with business, with everything where I've been told, oh no, you're crazy. That's too much. And I'm like, just watch me. Just watch me. Oh, you think I have to do that first before I do this? No, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to go straight to it. But you can just watch me do it. So I feel like that unapologetic energy of like, no, I'm not apologizing for this. And it's totally possible and I'm going to do it.
That's amazing. I'm celebrating you so, so hard for that because yes, we definitely need more women that know their worth and are not afraid to say their price, right? That's incredible.
Yes.
And what ends up happening is, and I'm celebrating you too, so great, Elizabeth. What ends up happening is if we don't do that, I will tell you right now, because I've done this, if we charge too little, we're running ourselves ragged and we don't, at the end of the day, we're not keeping the lights on and we're exhausted because we have to have a lot of clients in order to make the bottom line and keep the lights on or have any abundance. But if we charge our worth, and actually, the place that I learned our worth is that place that's kind of uncomfortable to say. It's uncomfortable. That number that feels like it's too much, that's the number. So because you'll have less clients, but you'll have more time because you don't need so many clients because you're charging your worth.
Yeah, and you'll have clients that value you. You don't want the clients that think you're not worth that.
Yeah. No. And so much of that comes from we want to be everything for everyone and we want to be accessible. And those are lovely things. And I don't fault anyone for that desire. But how are we really accessible and how are we really helping anyone if we're burnt out?
Exactly. It doesn't serve anyone. And also, we live in a day and age of YouTube. If you want to spend the time, you can go find out anything on YouTube. Right?
Yeah,
talk about
totally.
accessibility. That's free. But my time is limited. I have 2 kids. I have 2 businesses. And I've invested a lot in my knowledge. And that is worth something. Right? So you're paying for that. But what I have found in my own investments is that the more I invest with the right person, I get the better results. Because I have all the skin in the game. People pay attention to what they pay for. So there's a lot of pricing psychology behind it too. Obviously, you have to be legit in your product or service. Like, we're not talking about anything other than that, but you actually get better results when you are really showing up fully for the containers that you decide to be in.
And I want to encourage everyone as we're wrapping up at the end of our conversation to please go and check out if you want to smile, if you want to feel good and you want to have inspiration for your own Instagram also, check out Elizabeth Marberry's Instagram and dance with her in her kitchen. It is freaking awesome. She is so much fun and she'll do the trending stuff and then she'll do her own stuff and then she'll stop and tell you a story. So, I mean, I've cried on your Instagram. I've laughed on your Instagram. I've danced with you on your Instagram.
That's amazing.
That's the best. Thank you so much for that reflection. Thank you so much for having me be here. I really appreciate you both so much. It's been really fun.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate and value your time.
Thank you. And I know you have to go, but that was so good, Elizabeth. Thank you. And I will make sure that everybody knows how to find you.
Please leave us a review, share us with a friend, and we will see you again next Wednesday.
Thanks for joining us on Unapologetic Uplift. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share the love and tell a friend about us, and give us a review.
Please don't miss a thing. Subscribe to this podcast and explore our sponsors, Objects with Purpose Eco Luxury Candles and Divine Activation membership.
Objects with Purpose is more than an eco-luxury candle brand. They are time travel devices in the form of a candle. Light the 3 wicks representing past, present, and future with the validation that you are exactly where you need to be. And if you're ready to raise your level of consciousness and step into your unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era, join the Divine Activation membership at cuttingties.coach/queen. With 3 tiers to choose from, you'll find the perfect fit to support your transformation.
Thank you for your listening and love. We'll see you next Wednesday on Unapologetic Uplift.
Welcome to the Divine Activation membership, a movement for women that are ready to raise their consciousness and step into their unapologetic, unfiltered, and unbothered era.
With your heart, live authentically and become the magnet for all of your soul's desire.
Grow, connect with your heart and body, release unhealthy and unhelpful thought patterns, heal old wounds, create new neural pathways, and reprogram your subconscious with high-value beliefs so you can manifest the life you're meant for.
Ready to take a break from what's holding you back? Visit cuttingties.coach and join the Divine Activation membership today. Hey, unapologetic souls. I'm Ianthe Mauro, founder of Objects with Purpose, candles that touch the soul and the body. I've released a limited edition 3-wick candle collection in 3 fragrances inspired by a time in history. The Time Travel Collection, because scent evokes memory and lighting a candle can truly transport you to your highest self. Anytime.
Ianthe's candles are truly special, clean, safe, even for the body as a solid perfume or massage oil, and smell amazing. But what truly fills her heart is empowering others to be seen in their best light.
In 2020, when the 200 stores that sold my candles across the country closed their doors, I knew it was time to give back. I started guiding others to launch their own candle companies and design candles and fragrances for other brands as a way to share light in a dark time.
So why settle for just any conventional candle? Light the 3 wicks in each Objects with Purpose candle. You're supporting handmade in California, small batch, artisanal, eco-luxury, and treating yourself to a memory-evoking evolution. Visit ianthemauro.com to discover your next favorite candle. Let the olfactory experience inspire cherished memories.